Hello, Battletech fans. Today we're going to go over some of the topics that were talked about in Mitch's last stream. So this is going to be Battletech Heavy Metal Update number 1. So we have a lot of interesting things to talk about. And some of those things that we've talked about prior, some things were confirmed, other things kind of up in the air, and some really interesting kind of topics to kind of talk about. So let's start with some of the other ones. So what is confirmed is official mod support is 100% confirmed. This came from Mitch himself. So I know there was somebody in one of my videos made a comment and said that there wasn't the guy that was doing it, just he quit or whatever. Again, nothing really confirmed from that, but Mitch confirmed that there is official mod support, so it is in the game, so that's awesome. Really cool to have. So they also talked about also some performance fixes in 1.8, so that's really cool. I know there's been a lot of issues with some people that have been dealing with some bugs and some performance drop-offs and whatnot, so they're going to be addressing those for sure. So some interesting things they talked about. So there's going to be 50 new mercenary contracts. So apparently a lot of them are going to look the same, but some of them are going to be different. So you're not going to see all 50. They weren't really clear on that, like why I wouldn't see all 50, but maybe you'd see a certain amount per playthrough, or certain ones through certain playthroughs. It wasn't very clear, but either way, so more contracts, more mercenary contracts, really cool. More travel events, so more of those, as we're traveling along and then something happens and you make a choice and either it ends up being good or bad for you, so that's kind of cool. So they made a quality of life update, so this involves the star map, and this is huge. I wish I talked about this on one of the wants. Part of my other 1.8 patch review. So the star map update is another filter update, and this is something that I wanted for a long time. It's basically a gear finder. So let me elaborate on the gear finder part of it. So the gear find, so if you're looking for gyros, right? So if you want to look for a gyro, you can go into the filter box and click gyros, and it will show locations on the star map where gyros are located. That's really cool. Or if you want to look for certain SRMs or LRMs or whatever the case may be, it's there now. So that's awesome. That was a very good quality of life update. And then attached to that, now you know that there's manufacturing plants on certain manufacturing planets and research planets. In the description, and when you go to planets, there's a description that says there's it's barren, or it's a city is there, or it's a research facility, it's a research planet. Those words are now going to correlate with what gear is displayed there. I kind of figured they were going to go in that direction. It kind of felt that way already, but maybe they weren't clear with it before, but they are now. So if you were to go to a manufacturing planet, you get this gear. Okay, so that's how that's going to work. So very cool. Very cool. And then they talked about another store overhaul. So this is basically they're working with the economy and all this. So the economy, so they mess with the stores a little bit. And one of the things I heard from that is now there's going to be more Star League tech. So that's going to be cool. So, if you wanted more double heat sinks, as they mentioned, now there's more of that. You can find that in stores now. But the catch is, it is rare, in a sense, but it's still available. So it's not as rare, but it's extremely expensive. I don't know what that means, other than the fact that you might not be able to afford it in the beginning part of the game, but maybe towards the mid-late game you can start affording this kind of tech. That's kind of cool. That I like a lot. So that is a part of their economy overhaul. So it's now we get to see like probably the LB10X, the ultra auto cannons, and whatever else lost tech there is. It's going to be readily available in the stores. So very cool update. They also said that there's going to be a Flashpoint mini campaign. And we talked about this mini campaign a little bit, but Mitch kind of went into a little bit more detail than just saying there is a mini campaign. So basically you start off as you normally would. You're just a lonely mercenary, but you're going through these flashpoints. And then you kind of just go through your career mode. I kind of feel like how it was in the regular campaign. You kind of just you go through, you do the first flashpoint, and then like the first main story mission, and then you have to do a couple of consecutive missions before the other main mission or now flashpoint gets unlocked. So that's going to be how the mini campaign for like the flashpoint mini campaign is going to play out. So that's really cool. And apparently once you reach you reach a 5 skull flashpoint, you better be ready. This is pretty much quoting Mitch, be ready. It's because the final flashpoint mission is you're facing against the bounty hunter, these legendary mech warriors, the bounty hunter and the Black Widow, Natasha Kerensky. So that's big. That is big. So a side note of that, so they made updates to the main campaign. So the main updates to the main campaign are added abilities to bosses. So like now bosses are going to have more abilities, which are going to make them a little bit more challenging in the missions. So like bosses like Victoria in the main campaign, but they also emphasized the bounty hunter and the Black Widow. So that is going to be, it's going to be an insane battle apparently. So we better be ready and to go when we fight those main guys. So that's a big thing. And again, we talked about the performance fixes, which is huge. I know there's been a lot of performance issues, across the board for everybody. So hopefully all that's addressed. The other thing that they did was they added more tutorials for new players. Smart. Makes sense. Great move. More tutorials for new players. So, basically kind of going over some of the new abilities and stuff like that in the main campaign. Awesome. Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. So that's really, really cool. So, how do you like that so far? That's really big for a patch. That's a really big list for a patch here. Now, talking about some other things that I did not see. So I didn't see anything of, there's no new color schemes or pattern, camo patterns for right now, I didn't really see anything in those regards. All right, so there's nothing to be seen in that sense. So, you know, take it for what it is. You know, I know people want more, you know, custom colors and stuff like that, but again, with mod support now, that might not be something that HBS is, you know, really focused on at this point. So let's talk about some other things here. You know, we can go into what they call the refit screen. Now, the refit screen, so I'm going to bring this view up for you guys. So now there's multiple views in the mech bay to look at your mechs. So we have 4 camera angles over here, so we can see there's 4 different camera angles that you can look at your mechs, rotate your mechs. So that's, again, rotating mechs have been confirmed. So that's 100% confirmed. And then they made these camera angles, which is sweet. So if you're all about that mech porn and stuff like that, this is definitely gonna be an excellent quality of life update for you guys. So I know I'm gonna enjoy it. So this is an awesome update. This is probably the best part of the update that I feel is this right here. This is just more cool factor, right? It's just more fun. That's why I love HBS. They just want to make things fun, and this is what they're trying to do. And this thing right here on the flea, that's the coil weapon, by the way. That's their coil weapon. That's the large coil weapon, apparently. And going into coil weapons. So they didn't really dive into weapons. They're going to do that next week. So they're going to be releasing updates on the weekly for heavy metal. And weapons are going to be addressed next week. But they kind of touch base on the coil weapons. So they talked about how the damage works. So they talked about that when you move around, obviously, the further you move, the more damage gets accumulated for the coil weapons. But they also said that the coil damage resets after the turn. So once you get to that maximum, it resets if you don't fire it. I am assuming. I have to see how this plays out, but I don't think it just stays charged. I think you have to move, and then the next turn after you move a certain amount of spaces, that's when you want to use the coil weapon. So it's kind of like you have to maybe plan out your move, and then that's when you want to fire it. So you then move again to fire. And it's hard to explain, but they didn't really go into super detail with that. But yes, so the coil damage resets after the turn. So once you make your final move, you better be firing that weapon. So that's kind of how it works. So let me just kind of break it down one more time because I'm confusing myself. Because it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically, let's say you have the flea's movement, you have the turn, you have a turn, so you move the flea as far as you can. So you sprint the flea, right? And it gains all of this momentum and all of this damage, and then you can move them again, but not sprint. So then you gain as much as you can, and then you have to fire the weapon. I think that's how it works. And if you don't fire the weapon, nothing's been really said about that. Whether the charge stays after the movement, or obviously after you fire the weapon, the damage will reset after the turn. So that's kind of hard to explain. Sorry, I didn't really explain that really well. So hopefully they kind of go over that next week. So my apologies, but they really didn't go into it that much. But here's the key thing, and this is what worries me a little bit about balance. Okay, and as much as I like as a player to have a lot of cards on my table, like have everything working for me. They basically said no enemy will have a coil weapon. So kind of concerns me a little bit. And I feel like this is the same thing with the thumper cannon as well. Certain like weapons aren't going to be available. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the thumper cannon, but they basically said for the coil weapon, only players will have the coil weapon. So, not big fan of that, but maybe they just couldn't, maybe the AI just couldn't, wasn't able to work it out. So they weren't able to use it properly. So I can kind of understand that portion of it, and possibly with the thumper cannon as well. So that's something to think about. But yeah, so there it is. There's the flea, and there's our multiple camera angles, and you can change the color patterns, and I don't think you can change the color. Obviously you can't change the color in here. Unfortunately, you should. I think that would be another feature that they would add maybe later on. But you can change your pattern in here, so you can definitely change your pattern of the camo on your mech. So it's really cool. All right, moving on. Yeah, we can start talking about the mechs now. There's wasn't really anything else that they mentioned. And they just kind of went into the mechs at that point. So let's start off with the assassin. So a lot of these things are going to be confirmed. So like we talked about in my assassin review, it has an intercept system, is what they call it. That's his quirk. And it ignores 3 pips, so that is 100% confirmed. So it's going to ignore 3 pips of evasion when attacking. So that is going to be an insane mech early on. That is going to be a really good mech to have in your lance early. So if I were you, I'd pick up an assassin if you don't start off with one anyways. Yeah. So that's the assassin. Nothing really new. It looks really cool in the mech bay, by the way. So awesome job with making that mech, or putting it into the game. That's really awesome. Going into the flea. So apparently it doesn't have mask, but it has what they call targeting baffle system on it, which gives it plus hit defense. So this thing's going to have a ton of chevrons on it. So it's going to be very, very hard to hit. So its natural defense is going to be plus 3 hit defense on it. So pretty good. Pretty good. Then we're going to go into the Vulcan. It has a close quarter combat suite. So we kind of talked about it increases support weapon range. So allegedly, again, these numbers can change, but allegedly it has plus 90 meters for support range. So I don't know what that is, but that seems pretty significant. But here's the most significant part of this mech that they kind of talked. This is in the suite as well. Is a plus 10 melee hit defense. Oh, wow. So let me read that to you again. Plus 10 melee hit defense. So it can get up close and personal, and you can't hit it. You can't melee it at all. Probably not. So a lot of the AI is designed to go directly into melee within a certain range. For whatever reason, that's how HBS designed it. Most of the time, if the mech is in melee range, they go for a melee. So the Vulcan, you can maybe exploit that. So that's something that we can kind of go into once the DLC is released and see how that works. So I'm very interested to see. But I don't think it's game breaking, but it's definitely a significant strength. And now on to my favorite of all the mechs that was listed. And what I mean by favorite is like it's not my favorite mech, but one of the ones that I kind of like enjoyed um, is the Phoenix Hawk. So the Phoenix Hawk has what they call a vector thrust kit. So this kit is attached to the mech, and what this kit does is helps the mech jump further, and after it jumps, it does more damage. Okay, so it's not more precision, it's more damage. Okay, so not more chances to hit, but more damage after jumping. So that is huge. And one other key note that they mentioned, and it was kind of help balancing the mech out. I can't forget the other guy's name that was talking with Mitch there, but he's the lead designer of the Heavy Metal DLC. Apparently, even when you remove all the jump jets off of the Phoenix Hawk, there will always be 2 jump jets on the mech no matter what. So we'll always have 2 jump jets attached to it. What? That's insane. That's insane. So no matter what, like I don't know how much space this vector thrust kit takes up, but if you're getting rid of other jump jets, and you always have 2 jump jets attached. Like I really have to look at the layout. They didn't really show the layout too much, but wow, that's insane. That's really good. So hopefully the vector thrust kit doesn't take up too much space, because that leaves you more room to add weapons, maybe. We'll see. But that's really cool. So I thought that was a really big thing there for sure. And then moving on to the rifleman. So this is a very important one as well. So the rangefinder suite. So the stats on that is it gives 100 plus meter view range. 100 meter plus view range. Oh, that's a ton. That is a lot of view. Oh my, that has to be a ton. That has to be extremely high. And then it also gives -2 to recoil and range penalty. So it can take less recoil, and it can shoot further. Wow. Because the rifleman's armor is like paper thin, and it has to stay farther away, so that kind of makes sense. But the one important thing to note, and this was a question that was asked, can viewfinders stack on this mech? And the answer was clearly no. They cannot. So anything that has like certain recoil or certain range or whatever, it cannot stack with this mech. So keep that in mind. So they kind of knew right away how to balance that one out. So very good to know. So the next mech they went on to... Oh, wait a minute. Before we go on to any other mech, keeping with the rifleman, so this is from the stream itself. Okay, I want you to pay attention to the bottom right here. Okay? So this is very important. So this is the rangefinder suite. All right? There is LB10Xs on here. So I'm pretty sure the standard rifleman doesn't come with an LB10X. All right, so I don't know if he retrofitted this mech in a certain way, or this is how the mech's going to be. I'm not 100% sure. I just want to point this out to you guys, that this could be the standard rifleman that's coming your way. Again, I cannot confirm that, but that's what it says. I mean, you can even see a double heatsink in that mech as well. So I don't know if he kitted it out himself, or what he did, I'm not 100% sure, but this could be the standard layout for the rifleman. So figure to let you guys know on that. That seemed pretty interesting to me, for sure. Yeah. Very cool. So moving on to the Archer. So its quirk is the Missilery suite. Apparently missilery is a word from the apparently that's what the guy who designed the Heavy Metal DLC said. It was basically that is a word. So I'll take his word for it. So the Missilery suite, basically we kind of talked about it already. So this is confirmed. So LRM clustering is basically saying it's gonna the more LRMs you fire, the more it kind of goes more pinpoint. So what I kind of noted myself is they said that like if you fire an LRM-5, well, they didn't say like firing an LRM-5, but they said if you fire less missiles, it doesn't have an effect. But if you fire more, so I noted, well, if you have an LRM-15 or LRM-20, then it takes into effect. So I don't know between an LRM-5 and an LRM-10 if it has an effect on it or not. So just keep that in mind as well. And it also said that it gives plus 75% SRM stab damage. Oh boy. I know these numbers aren't exactly 100% correct. They did mention that. These numbers are subject to change. But that to me is game breaking. That to me is 100% game breaking. If you play that stab damage game and you have plus stab damage SRMs, then this is going to amplify it even more. So you're definitely going to be knocking mechs down or making them completely max stability. That's insane. That is insane. I don't know. I think the Archer is going to be a very broken mech. Like I said, it's going to be a very broken mech. I think that's one mech that might need a fix out of all the mechs there. I think that might be a little bit broken, but he basically said, the designer, I wish I remember his name, sorry, but the designer said that he actually, what he does when he tests these weapons out, that he maxes them out to ridiculousness and then he kind of trims it back. So you take that for what it's worth. I mean, 75% SRM stab damage is nuts. That is insane. I'm sorry, but you're just going to be knocking mechs down left and right. Unless it's the Annihilator, I don't know. All right, speaking of which, Annihilator has the BSC system, which we all know is going to give extra maximum stability damage taken. So it's very important to this mech, obviously, being what it is. We'll go into that in a second. So they gave it plus 40 max stability damage taken, and that also means the BSC system also gives plus 20% ballistic damage as well. Nuts! That's insane. That is crazy. I'm not gonna calculate the math right now, but AC-10s plus 20% in AC-10 damage, and you have lost stack AC-10s. Good luck. Good luck with this thing. Good luck fighting it. But the reason why I'm basically saying this max stab damage increase is important because apparently this mech is not very well armored. It's not. So during the stream, they basically showed it at its stock armor level. I was not impressed at all. So at stock, it's at 1,000. Okay, that's what was shown, what the picture was showing. I wish I took a screenshot of that, but yeah, it is. They definitely mean not well armored at all. So it's at 1,000. So I'm assuming at best maybe 1,300 to 1,400 at best. I would imagine. So not very good. But here's a positive note for the Annihilator. It is the most damaged. Excuse me, I'm reading this totally wrong. It is going to give out the most damage for a stock mech. So it's going to deal more damage than any other stock mech in the game. That's nuts. That is definitely going to make up for its. So it's basically a glass cannon. Its main job is to completely, as its name states, annihilate the enemy before it gets annihilated. So it's a glass cannon mech, which is cool. Why not? But we'll see what the max values of the armor is. I'm definitely going to play around with the Annihilator and see what we can do with it, for sure. And then we're going to go into the Bull Shark. So they kind of talked about this a little bit. And they hinted, I would say hinted or dropped, that there's going to be 2 variants of the Bull Shark. One's going to be kind of, not exciting, no lost tech on it, no thumper cannon on it. And then the other variant's going to have the thumper cannon and then other lost tech on it. So something along those lines. They kind of showed the lost tech version of it. So yeah. They really didn't go into much detail other than that. But there's one key note for the thumper cannon. It only has 2 shots. So it has a lot of strategy implications with that. So it can only shoot twice. So I wish I knew the other guy's name. The lead designer said that it's kind of like XCOM in a sense, where you got to make it count. So you got to make it. You have to use it in a way where it makes the most sense and it's going to give you the most edge in battle. So keep that in mind. That kind of makes sense. To me, that makes the most sense. It's not too overwhelming. It's not overpowered. It has 2 shots. And, it can kind of break open the battle for you, basically, with what they're saying. Is if as long as you use it right and, don't overuse it. Don't just use it at the beginning of the battle. Use it where it makes sense. So they kind of gave you a hint in that. And then they didn't talk about the Marauder or Warhammer. Really, they didn't really go into detail with that, which I'm surprised. Maybe they just didn't think about it. But they didn't talk about the Warhammer, but they did bring up the Warhammer's quirk, and it did say capacitor on it, and it gives extra 20% damage to energy weapons, so that is confirmed. But I didn't see the Marauder, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's going to be pretty much it for their first update to the Battletech Heavy Metal DLC. So a lot of interesting items added here. Obviously, I think the most interesting one here has to be the economy updates. The star map filters, that is huge. To look for certain gear, there are so many times where I'm looking for a certain mech or I'm looking for certain weapons, and it just takes you forever to find it, or you think RNG is playing a role in this. Apparently that's not going to be the case anymore. So thankfully that's in there, or going to be in there soon. I think that's the big one right there. The Flashpoint mini campaign is another one. Seeing more Star League tech in stores, but they're expensive. So that's a big one. Yeah, so they talked about balancing. So it looks like balancing was their their main point to this. They want to play to the lore, but they also want to make sure the game was balanced. So pretty much these quirks help keep the game balanced from what I'm understanding of it. So really, really cool update. I can't wait to hear about the weapons next week. And this was a really great stream, and it brought out a lot of information. So really, really cool. Again, guys, I would like to thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. We sit at 44 subscribers as we speak. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about the update. If there's something that, that made you snap to attention and thought, man, that was really cool. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the updates. And yeah. My subscriber goal is 50, so once we get there again, so I'm doing a career playthrough. Once we hit 50, I'll release a bonus episode for that playthrough. So again, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.